Talk Live. I'm Johnny Nelson. We've got a couple of guys next to me here that know a little bit about what's going on here in Vegas. We're in the edit suite at the New York Hotel here on the Strip. Behind the camera is Cool and Cassius. We're showing him a thing or two with those nice flip-flops and massive toes. Danny Hardy, Paulie Malignaggi. Boys, welcome. Welcome, boys. Now, you boys, you know, you made a lot of noise on Twitter. It's been a bit argumentative in regards to.
As much as Paulie, but you know.
You need to be careful. We did a show this morning, and you let Paulie Bosch in the conversation. I'm thinking, you be careful, man.
I'm so interested in what he's got to say. You know, he's a fascinating analyst. You know, and I respect his knowledge. I like to hear what he's got to say. Sometimes I forget I'm on TV. I'm just talking about fights. You know.
He knows far too much. So the fight itself, this is where the interest and the intrigue is. The UFC fans find a case for Conor McGregor to pull this off, and a man that's been on both sides of the fence has been in camp with McGregor. He more or less says, you say it yourself, has he got a chance?
I mean, anybody has a chance. It's a fight, so anybody does have a chance. I've brought it out this way. I've brought it out tactically. If you think about it tactically, no shot, right? But you know, you think about the intensity of a 29-year-old to the intensity of a 40-year-old. That's where McGregor has the advantage, is the intensity. Now, does that mean he's going to win the fight? Does that mean that intensity can translate into something positive? Only Conor knows that. We just need to make sure the intensity translates into something legal, because if he ends up doing too much illegal stuff, he's going to get himself disqualified anyway. So he's got to have that intensity. He's got to maintain that intensity through probably what are going to be big pockets of taking beatings. So if he can remain intense through big pockets of him taking shots and show that mentally he's still in the game and be effective with that intensity and not just dirty with that intensity, then of course you start to figure how he can have some chances.
Dan, you're from the world of UFC. Just how hard would it be for McGregor to not turn to type, slip an elbow in, slip a knee in, and just stick to the facts of boxing?
I honestly don't think it's going to be an issue for him. You know, we spar when we're preparing for an MMA fight. We focus on just jiu-jitsu, or just boxing, or whatever, just wrestling. We do specific training sessions to focus on individual disciplines. So, and McGregor comes from a boxing background, so he knows how to just be a boxer. He will just switch his game plan over, focus on his boxing, and that'll be it. I think he'll skirt the rules. I think he'll be very good in the clinch, controlling the head and using his head position and that kind of stuff. And obviously the clinch work is very different in boxing. A lot of the time they use overhooks in boxing. In mixed martial arts, you're giving up a takedown in there. So I think there are certain things that McGregor can do in the clinch which will be a little bit different to what Mayweather can do, but I don't think he's going to do anything illegal.
We are going to get to the fight itself, but let's talk preparation for the fight. We're having a talk down in the coffee shop downstairs. It's very different from a training camp from a boxer's perspective to Conor's. Yeah. You travel with a team, you work with the same team time after time after time. Do you think that prepares him for such a fight like this?
How do you prepare for a fight against Mayweather? That's the thing. I mean, you can even bring in some of the best boxers around. Obviously he brought Paulie in, and I feel like he was massively underutilized in training camp. I think that would have been a smart move to bring in Paulie and actually utilize him as a source of knowledge. But it's going to be very difficult to find anybody that can really give you a Mayweather look. But I think it works both ways. I know Mayweather's reached into the MMA world and tried to pull out a few guys that could help him, and there's just nobody that can do McGregor. So the interesting thing is that these two guys are so individual. They're so unusual in their own fighting styles in comparison to most of the other people in the sport that we really don't know what's going to happen when they face each other.
We hear about the controversy in training camp with what happened to you, but putting that to one side, prep-wise, if you was an analyst, if you were asked for your opinion on how Conor is preparing for this fight, what changes would you make, and what mistakes is he making at the moment?
I can't get into everything.
Yeah, you can.
All at once. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things you can discuss here. It depends on what you want to pick. I think from a tactical perspective, there's certain subtle mistakes he's making, and not just certain subtle mistakes that you'd say, all the awkwardness. You don't want to touch that. It's not about the awkwardness. The guy never turns his punches over. I mean, he's never landing with the knuckle part of the punch. He's always landing with the smack part of the punch, part of the hand. So you're not even maximizing your own power. Fundamentals, the way you're throwing punches. I understand not every punch you're throwing is correct. Even boxers don't throw every single punch correct. But when you want to make them count, you make sure you throw them correctly so that they make sure they count. And a lot of times his feet are off the ground. He's moving as he's punching, and these are shots that he's trying to make them count. One thing about boxing, you learn a very hard lesson if you don't understand this. It's very important to know who you are in there. have your identity, know what kind of fighter you are. But for me, in my opinion, it's even more important to know who you aren't. Okay. Conor McGregor fancies himself as a puncher. On Saturday night, he's going to find himself in a place where he doesn't even realize his punching power wasn't all that it's cracked up to be. Now, what's the backup plan? You fancy yourself as a puncher.
But he's shown that in the world of UFC. Now they're wearing
You have 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds in MMA. You have 10 seconds in boxing. You don't have 10 seconds in MMA. You can pounce and finish the guy off in MMA. How many clear-cut knockouts does he have in mixed martial arts? There's knockdowns in boxing all the time where if we're allowed to pounce, the fight would end right away too. How many times does a 10 count happen? The guy gets up, resumes, and actually takes the advantage in the fight. You know, it's happened so often. Think about it. If Shane Mosley versus Floyd Mayweather was a mixed martial arts fight, Mayweather probably gets stopped in round 2, right? Because he gets rocked. Mosley could probably take him down and finish him right there. You know, you get the opportunity to recover in boxing a little better. Now, granted, this is also why guys die in boxing, because now you're concussed and you get a chance to continue. While in mixed martial arts, you get taken out and that's it. The fight's over. This is why people die in boxing, and I don't really hear of deaths in mixed martial arts. So there's a pros and cons to it there. But regardless, if you are a clear-cut puncher, if you fancy yourself as a puncher, I mean, boxers respect punchers of the level of Golovkin. If you don't punch like that, then you're not a puncher in boxing. Okay, you need different dimensions to your game. You need different, you need to be like an onion, have all those layers to you. You know, if the only layer you're fancying yourself, I mean, you can clearly see the denial in this guy. He's talking about giving concussions in training camp to sparring partners. He's talking about guys stumbling. You know, talking about me. Like, he clearly fancies himself as a puncher that he's not. So again, I go back to what I said. It's important to know who you are. It's more important to know who you are not. Because if you find out you thought you were somebody that you are not, you have a very hard lesson on fight night. Early in my career, I hurt my hands very badly. I had 4 operations. I realized very early in my career, I'm not going to be a puncher. So I started devising my style in a way where I could be effective not being a puncher. I started to figure out things in the gym, learning the fundamentals, the science behind what I'm doing, so that I can be effective in a non-puncher's mentality, because I knew my mentality couldn't be that of a puncher, and I was able to do it. You have to know who you are, because now if I'm going to the ring and I think I'm a puncher and I start fighting toe-to-toe and I start staying in the pocket longer than I should because I fancy myself as a puncher and my punching power is going to get me out of the problems, and all of a sudden I'm not, I'm going to find myself catching a big beating because the guy's not going anywhere. Oh, as a matter of fact, he's just returning fire. So you have to understand this proper thing here, because it's very important. It could be the difference between winning and losing.
Is it going to be a harsh reality check for Conor? Is he going to get in there all of a sudden realising in deep, deep waters, or is it going to be vice versa for Floyd, an unorthodox fighter, young fighter in Mcgregor, putting on a different kind of style to him?
You know, we're all fighters. We know that there's a point in your career where there's a natural drop-off. Everyone experiences it. It doesn't matter how good you are. There's a point in which you start to diminish in your skills, your reaction times, your power, your strength, your ability to recover. And that's undeniable. Now, obviously, you know, Mayweather's 40 years old. You know, he's had 49 fights. This is his 50th fight. He's been in there a lot. He's gone through a lot of training camps. And that's the thing that concerns me here. Obviously, now switching to the 8-ounce gloves changes things as well, because and like
for both fighters,
yeah, for definitely and for sure. And I think it's very interesting on both sides how they benefit from it. As you were saying, you know, early in your career, you realised that you weren't a puncher, so you changed your game. Mayweather did the same thing. You know, you go back to the pretty boy days. He was looking to kill people with his punches. Now he outboxes them. He schools them because he's developed this ability to control the chaos in the boxing ring. Now, the chaos that he's experienced in the boxing ring so far has been in a boxing context, whereas McGregor brings a chaos that he doesn't expect. I think he moves in ways that Floyd wouldn't realise. It's going to take him a time to adapt to what Conor's doing and to really spot his openings, which is partly why I think he switched to the 8-ounce gloves, because I think he's trying to draw the fight out of McGregor. I think he's trying to give McGregor the impression that A, he's very confident, and B, he's coming to knock McGregor out. And obviously it's going to influence the betting lines. I think McGregor's got a responsibility to come out and be an aggressive fighter, because that's the way he's always been.
He'll have no choice, because he's going to have to throw twice as many punches as he does in MMA. He's going to have to work twice as hard because the ring is going to be smaller, so therefore the pressure's going to be on him. It's a completely different field he's got to work with, but he's been preparing for that.
He has. We don't really know. We've not really seen a great deal inside of his training camp. I mean, obviously Paulie's got the best insight with you know the time he spent in there with him, but we don't really know what he's doing. My concern would be that he's trying to learn boxing at this late stage, because that's not going to work, because the best boxers have not been able to beat Floyd Mayweather. And if Conor steps in there, like you said, you've got to know who you are. Conor's not a boxer. He's a combat athlete. It's a very, very different mentality. It's a very different sport. And we go in there to finish fights. We go in there to try and take people's heads off. And my concern is that if Conor does that, he's going to miss 80% of his punches, like most people do against Mayweather, and then he's going to leave himself vulnerable.
Is that not his best option? Because, in my opinion, I think the MMA fighters are a lot fitter than boxers. But when it comes to the art, the sweet science, that's where boxers seem to get the edge. So is it going to be brains against brawn?
I don't know. I mean, as far as conditioning, I think both sports need a lot of conditioning. The one thing mixed martial arts gives you that boxing doesn't give you is you can get into the guard on the ground, and you can use that as a rest. Yes, you're fighting when you're in the guard, when somebody pulls guard on you or whatnot, but you can also use it as a rest, as the fight isn't as intense as it is standing up. Boxing, you don't have the option to rest like that, or rest, because it's not really, like I said, it's not really a rest. You're still fighting, but it's just a less intense fight. Boxing doesn't give you that option. You may be tired, the guy's going to start cutting the ring off on you, making the ring feel a lot smaller than it is. Mentally, you start to panic. It's not just physical panic. Now you start to mentally panic, because this guy's presenting himself in front of you constantly, posing this danger. So the mental fatigue creates the physical, more physical fatigue. So there's a difference here you're still looking at. When I think about it, it's just, I don't know. If he just comes out to rush, I don't think it's his best game plan, because for one, Floyd will kind of expect it.
What other chance has he got? How do you see him outboxing Floyd Mayweather?
No, I don't see him outboxing Mayweather. The thing is, I'd like to see McGregor find a way to know how to fight inside without being dirty, to the point where it's going to get himself disqualified. It's easier said than done, though, because as I was saying to you guys earlier, I don't know if we were on camera or not, but fighting on the inside in boxing is the most difficult part of boxing to learn, because you are in range of every shot, every single body shot, hooks and uppercuts to the body, hooks and uppercuts to the head. So every shot you're susceptible to being hit with. So that automatically creates a panic. This close range creates a panic in your brain. Now you not only have to go through that panic, but you also have to do it in a way where you're calm enough to find the openings yourself, so you can do this damage, And that in and of itself takes a calmness, but also an intelligence. It takes way too long to learn in a few months. It takes years. I mean, it takes years to learn how to properly fight inside in boxing. It's not just something that comes to you. So it's not something that Conor can learn, but I'd like to see him find a way to be effective. All this stuff that he does inside that we saw in the gym, it's all just holds and push downs, and sometimes he's holding your head down one hand and throwing an arm punch with the other hand. It probably may get the crowd going crazy. They may think he's doing something effective, but in reality, it's getting nothing but getting him tired, because in reality, even the shots that he's throwing are just arm punches. He does not punch hard enough to where an arm punch is going to do any damage. You know what I'm saying? So you'd like to see him be effective inside in a way where it's effective, but it's not killing the rules. Because if he's killing the rules and doesn't do it in a subtle way, he's going to get himself disqualified.
My trainer said the worst people to fight are the people that don't know how to fight. Now that's no disrespect to Conor. What I'm saying is he's established an art in his style of fighting. If a boxer is not used to this, his time and his movement, his method of fighting, he could be a bogeyman for Floyd Mayweather. Do you see the fight becoming messy, clinical, clean, or quick?
I don't think it's going to be a quick fight. I don't think that McGregor's going to land a clean punch early on to really hurt Floyd. I think he's going to have to create that opening, probably fifth or sixth round. I certainly don't think Floyd's got the power, maybe not the power, the hand strength to knock out McGregor. So I think that there's an element of comfortability there where he knows that McGregor's got a little bit of time to kind of work. So that's why I feel like the 8-ounce gloves it's a double bluff for Mayweather. I think he's trying to draw the fight out of McGregor, so he gets the looks that he wants, so he can read him. Like Berto says, he studies everything, he watches. So even in the early rounds, when he saw an opening that he knew that was vulnerable to Mayweather, and Mayweather wasn't taking it, he's studying, he's watching, he's making mental notes, he's downloading my movement patterns, and that's what he needs to do with McGregor.
If you was Mayweather's cornerman, and after the first round Mayweather came back and sat down, what would your words to him? Would you have expected him to even McGregor to even got that far?
Yeah, because I think the only way the fight would end quickly would be a one-punch knockout. Floyd's not really a one-punch guy. Early on you're strong, you're in shape. We're all strong around one. Even if we're going to get beat later on, we're all strong around one. The thing about Mayweather is he's not a Golovkin kind of puncher, so the fight's not going to end in one round. Even if Mayweather is to get this stoppage, it will be a slow, calculated beating as it goes on, which actually hurts McGregor worse because an assault is, you'd rather just be put out of your misery, but instead this becomes an assault if McGregor doesn't know how to defend himself properly and fight properly. I think Mayweather, you talk about the awkwardness of a fighter. You talk about the fact that a fighter that doesn't know how to fight is a hard guy to fight. That's correct for a timing fighter. Is Floyd a timing fighter? Yes, Floyd's a timing fighter. But Floyd is also a fighter who fundamentally has his fundamentals down pat. This is why he was an Olympian. You eliminate a lot of awkwardness just by taking it to the guy. Just by taking it to somebody. And I thought of this just now. You know, I thought, as I'm thinking about this fight, I think to myself, I think Floyd studies in the first couple of rounds and then starts taking it to him. As you said that awkwardness, I said to myself, how do you eliminate awkwardness? You stay with the fundamentals, you don't do anything fancy, and you also take it to the person. Because when they're taking it to the person, an awkward guy makes his defensive moves too big, he punches a little loopy, he doesn't keep things short enough, you know? So you eliminate, you make that to his disadvantage instead of making it to his advantage. I could actually see Mayweather seeing a bit of awkwardness from McGregor and starting to take it to him from round one. I actually just thought of this now as you were saying that, because I thought initially it would probably take him a couple of rounds to start taking it to him. I always see Floyd taking it to McGregor. In this fight, I see Floyd taking it to him. It's just, he may take it to him a little sooner when he sees what's in front of him as far as the awkwardness. McGregor relies on awkwardness for you to make mistakes sometimes, you know? So you eliminate that just by taking it to him and forcing him to fight a fight that maybe he may not want to fight, you know?
Tell me how McGregor beats Mayweather. State his case. You're his man.
Yeah, he stops him. That's how he beats him.
One lucky shot beats him down?
No. He's got to set it up. Like I said, what I would do if I was McGregor, I would come out and the first 2 rounds I would be quite cautious because that's not what Mayweather wants him to come out hard and fast. He wants him to be able to. He wants to be able to read him as he's attacking, which is what Mayweather does. So I would do the reverse. I would do the reverse of that. I would come out cautious. I would kind of take control of the center. I would pose as the bigger man in there because he is. And I certainly think that I don't think Mayweather's going to start fast because I think that Conor's too much of an unknown commodity for him to take risks like that. He's not a risk taker. That's why he's unbeaten in 49 fights. So I think it's going to take a couple of rounds for him to warm up, and that's where McGregor then starts to find his way into the fight. And to be honest, from a martial arts perspective, you can kind of you look at things in a different way. Now, my first thing is Mayweather's hands are brittle. You know, he even got a standing count against Hernandez, right? Right, left hook to the temple, and he hurt his hand. It was standing 8 count. Like, Conor's got a hard head. He's got a hard punch. He can beat up the hands, the arms, the shoulders. You know, anything that will take the energy out of Mayweather and allow Conor to create openings for him to counter.
Is it a step too far for Mayweather?
It would be a step too far if he stepped into the octagon for sure. But for this is Mayweather's world. So a credit to McGregor for stepping out of this. The analogy I've used before is it's like the Dallas Cowboys playing the New Zealand All Blacks at rugby. Even if they lose, they've not lost anything because it's not their rule set. So he's stepping out of his rule set and testing himself. McGregor has to shelf 3/4 of his game to fight this fight. In order for Mayweather to step into mixed martial arts, he would have to learn 3/4 of the game. It's very, very different.
Vegas is going to get crazy and busy this week. Are the fans going to get it or not? You know, you've got your passionate McGregor fans, your passionate Mayweather boxing fans. Are they going to get it? But I heard you mention the word fickle earlier on today. Are they going to get it? I don't know. I mean, in combat, you know, fans are very fickle. You know, you're hot for the moment, and right away they turn their back on you. I think you'll have the fans that, you know, will make excuses like, for me, it's hard to see McGregor winning this fight. So I think you'll have the fans that will say, well, if Floyd would step in the octagon, yes, we know that already, guys. So that's why they're not stepping in the octagon. So we know. Just like we probably figure that if Conor steps in the ring, the same thing happens. So, you know, I don't think you can go to that argument. The argument has been boxing the past couple months. You would hope that each fighter's fans remain loyal to them, but like I said, fans are very fickle. Talk about being fickle there. You and Conor have a little spat. There's talk. There's a strong possibility of you two finding each other after this.
We need to see that.
Do we need to see that?
Yeah, we do.
I would like to see that. You know, money aside, when I don't like somebody, I've always wanted to punch them in the face ever since I'm a kid. You know, so no, I don't like him. I'd rather hit him with small gloves. I want to feel my fist digging into him. Yeah, I totally am for the fight for a lot of reasons.
So do you think, say he loses to Floyd, which we're all expecting, well, most of us are sort of expecting, do you think his redemption is, you know what, I'll at least get one of them. I'll get my hands on Paulie. The way he's talking like he could handle you.
You know, forget about the way he's talking. The way this has come about altogether, like, as I said earlier, it's a photo a week. You let some time spread out. Then you feel like it's gonna die out, and then you put out another photo. Then you feel like it's gonna die out, and you put out a video. I feel like I got the feeling to myself, like, what are these guys doing? These guys are doing this on purpose. Because you could easily just let it all out and then move on. You know, everybody wants to move on. A lot of the fans on social media tell me they want to move on. You know, so but you're keeping it alive. Because every time, every time you put out something through a little bit of a break, you keep it alive, and the media storm starts all over again. Whereas opposed to if it was all at once, the media storm would happen just once. Now you do it through some spread time, the media storm happens every single time. You know, it's almost like to the point where I wonder what they're gonna do this week. You know, but it's fight week, so you figure they'd focus on Floyd, not me. So I think when I think about that, and I think about this Zuffa boxing shirts that I've been seeing Dana wearing and everybody wearing, and I think about the fact that if they want to come into boxing and they want to start promoting boxing, and they want to make it a big deal, they probably need a big American fight. They probably need to enter the fray with a splash, you know? So then I think to myself, okay, me versus McGregor makes sense on that front. Me versus McGregor makes sense on this front in the U.S., because I thought to myself, would they try to get it in Ireland? Would they try to get it in the UK? No, they want to make a splash in the US, because that's where kind of the headquarters of everything happens, you know? You need to start here first. And so they've got this name in boxing, Malignaggi, me, and then, you know, they've got their guy. They've got this built-in beef already that they've continued to feed. They've continued to feed subtly, slowly. I think the more I think about it, I think this was calculated from the start.
Are you giving them more credit than they deserve? Because in preparation for the fight itself, you're thinking, these guys, what could they do? They're not smart enough, because you yourself said training camp has been ridiculous from a boxer's perspective. So promotionally, are they Svengalis? Have these guys got it locked down to a T?
Yeah, well, Zuffa would be the Fertitas. Zuffa would be Dana. Zuffa wouldn't be his training team. You know what I'm saying? His training team just does what they do, you know, or don't do what they do in this case. I mean, I didn't see them doing much, but you know, I don't think the business end of it is handled by them per se. You know, I think it's handled by Adi, his Connor's manager, and Dana and Lorenzo Fertitta. You know, and I think they've been subtly feeding this. You know what I'm saying? You know, in their own way, keeping this alive. You know, and while at the beginning of camp I was finding myself a little bit confused, you know, time when you step out of everything and you start to really observe everything, sometimes makes you put the puzzle pieces together. And I'm starting to put the puzzle pieces together, and I think they're very clear to a lot of people.
You mentioned the business side of it. Are we all of a sudden seeing the emergence of something that could be an exciting union down the line, an MMA fight and a boxer, a top boxer in big fights every now and again? So this has created, you know, they said there may be over 1 billion people watching this, so it's created interest, it's created intrigue. Could we see this again down the line and down the line again? Is it something that the mixed martial artists are interested in doing? Is it an argument you guys have in the gym when nobody's listening?
I think we can see it again. I think this could be, you know, we could have these one-off fights that happen. The reality is that they're never going to be bigger than Mayweather and McGregor. I mean, this is as big as it gets. You know, no offense to Paulie, but this is the best of each sport coming together, and it's fortunate they're around the same weight class. I mean, I know that there was another contract that had 2 signatures on it, and Jimmy Manuwa was one and David Haye was the other. That fight was happening in December until Jimmy Manuwa lost his last fight, but there's definitely talk about it. Obviously, David Haye's just signed Michael Venom Page, who's a standout MMA fighter, so there's definitely a crossover, and why wouldn't there be? You know, I mean, it's combat sports. We all love a fight.
We've seen fighters try and step into the octagon, and it's not panned out right. James Toney. Yeah.
And Ray Mercer knocked out Tim Sylvia too.
But they don't. They'll get to a certain level if they stay on their feet. Get them to the ground. It's out of there.
You can say the same for Connor if that's the case. You know?
The thing is, anybody that's got to a high level in boxing has the ability to step over into another sport and dedicate themselves to that. But it does take a level of dedication. You know, like you were talking about with the Tim Sylvia knockout. I mean, Tim Sylvia was a former UFC champion, but it's not like he stepped in there without any training. Whereas James Toney got in there, having doing like
and I'll tell
3 sprawls, and you know.
And Dan is right, because I'll tell you, when I saw that Couture versus Tony fight made, I thought it was horrible styles, because styles make fights, and James was always a fighter who rolled on the inside, stayed very close to you, and could roll these counters, and beautiful style for boxing that it takes so much skill to fight that way, but at that close range, you can't fight that way in mixed martial arts. You'll just be taken down. So when I saw them make that fight, I said, wow, this is the worst thing James could have done, because stylistically, he's anything but a mixed martial artist, because he loves to fight at a range where you're just giving the guy a takedown, and that's what Couture did.
And his dedication was gone at that point anyway. I mean, he was out of shape, and Randy Couture is one of the monsters of this sport. I mean, he redefined what it is to be a grappler in the sport of mixed martial arts, taking people down and beating them up. And James Toney was never going to stand a chance against that.
Boys, it's going to be an intriguing week. Dan, Paulie.
One more thing.
Oh, one more thing. Go on, go on there.
I saw Stipe Miocic and challenge Anthony Joshua too. So that's another one, another MMA versus boxer thing. Yeah, I saw that on social media recently. So, like you said, you might have these one-offs once in a while.
Watch this space. This is Vegas week.